Hey guys, we've got the kind of some of the same gears yesterday. The PDP 63 soap, the deluxe razor. It's a Gillette new, and it is a vintage razor. Inside it, we're going to put the Personna 74 Tungsten. And this is the B10 from Zenith, a nice, comfy boar brush that I do enjoy. Had it soaking for, I don't know, half an hour. I've also had for just a few minutes the puck here soaking with a little bit of water in it, softening that top up just a bit. And so we're going to let's go ahead and load up the razor. All right, so there we go. This razor has these 4 posts on the corners that provide alignment, as well as that ridge rail right down the center. This is a common bar handle that was probably with some of the new razors, but probably not for this deluxe. There was a slightly different modified handle for it, is what I've heard. All right, easy alignment there. Don't have to fiddle with it or anything. A little bit of water on my face. Not quite 24 hours worth of growth. More like 12 or, I'm sorry, 14. Now, I'm going to load for a long time today. I loaded for 90 seconds yesterday with a small bore brush. Small soft bore. This is a soft bore as well. It's a little bit bigger, and so it's possible that it might scrub up some more lather. But we'll just load it, let's say, for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. All right. I was looking at the wrong time there. I actually started at the 14-second mark, but we'll call it the 15-second mark. And so it was 2:15, so 4:15 will be 2 minutes. So 4:30 will be the time, the minute time where we stop. And you do see the frothy stuff come off the soap early. And it's not really all that wasteful if you want to let that kind of soap just go down the drain. Now, one thing you can do is cup the soap a little bit more with your hands around it. And so that can sometimes help the brushes to stay on the soap puck a little bit more. I think this brush has a little bit more backbone than the Simogue that I used yesterday. We sure are getting plenty of lather here. It looks like I need to clean my camera lens a little bit on the bottom of the screen there. But I've just, with this soap, come up against so many times where I just ended up with a lather that needed more soap. And so we're going to do overkill today. Why not? Soap is pretty cheap. If I end up with more passes of lather, I'll make a note of that. And so as I look in my usage log, I'll see how many passes were used. Okay, so that's 2 minutes of loading right there. Look at all that early lather I've got. So let's do it for, what I said. And bam. There we go. Man, I am going to collect up this thicker stuff here. I've got so much stuff. I watched one guy, and the name of his video was something like the last lather video you'll ever need to watch. And sure, he got this really slick looking lather. but it was just because he loaded forever. And so that's not really all that impressive. He just loaded for like 3 minutes or 4 or 5 minutes. And that wasn't really lather. That's just soap. So now I'm gonna kind of clean up my hands here and the side of the soap container. So most everything is going to be the same as yesterday. And we'll just see how things go. My lathers have just been too thin with this particular soap, and I want to find out what I can do to help it out and improve it. All right, yesterday I used 2.5 teaspoons of water. So there's 2 teaspoons in there now. Let me clean that camera lens off. There we go. I think that's better. So we've got 2 teaspoons into this lather now. Let's just see what we're able to whip up. This lather does seem like it needs to be run just a little drier than I usually, well, to be honest, a lot drier than I usually like them. And yesterday I loaded for 1.5 minutes with a small, soft boar brush. I put 2.5 teaspoons in. And then I had to put a little bit more as I had to load, because I loaded for 60 seconds first or 45 seconds first, maybe just 60, and then I did 30 seconds, and so I added a little bit more to the soap. So maybe I won't add too much more to this, just give it a good mix. Love the scent of this soap. It's a great value soap. It's a quad milled, and so it's probably going to give you a lot of bang for your buck, a lot of uses with perhaps not requiring you to load as much or to use as much product per shave as a crope or something like that. So there we go. Let's take a feel. That is nice and slick. That is a much better slick feel than I've gotten so far. It's a nice slickness there. Doesn't have a whole lot of cushion. Doesn't resist me squeezing all that much. But it's a tremendous slickness. So with some brushes, it just maybe takes a little bit longer to load. Now once this gets on my face, I may discover that I'll add a little bit of water to it. But let's just give it a good another minute of mixing just to make sure everything's consistent. Plunge the brush down into it to push some of the bowl lather up into the knot, to maybe mix with something that might still be inside the knot that needs to be worked out. Then do a little bit of rotating motions here. I definitely do not usually shave with a lather that has this kind of appearance, because it usually needs to have a lot more hydration. But this is a vegan soap, and it doesn't have that tallow to help it be slick, so have to run it a little drier, it seems. Not all vegan soaps are this way. This one may be. Yeah, look at all these peaks and jaggedy places and things like that. All right, so let's get my face wet. And let's go at it. So this is very comfortable. When you have a thicker lather, one nice thing about a thicker, drier lather is that they really help to make a brush feel better than it might normally feel. The downside of a thicker lather is you may not get the hydration that you want. You may not get that protection that you want. And I do attribute really wet, slick lathers to the reason I'm able to get so many uses out of blades. You know, I've got 220 uses out of a Gillette Nasset, and it's still going. I'm going to grab some of this extra and put it back in the bowl. And after we've scrubbed for a bit, we can paint like this, and this gives you a good opportunity to look at your neck right here. I have to look at my neck because since I have goatee, I can't really look at the full movement across the face. I have to look at my neck. And if I do this, and I've got kind of pock marks and big ridges and hills and valleys and things, and that's usually a sign that I have a lather that's too dry. But this looks pretty good now. See right down here, sometimes that right there is an indication of too dry of a lather. But like I've said, I'm running this guy drier than I usually do, just to get that creamy feel. And sure enough, I've got it. It's not as good as a tallow soap, but it's a very good shaving soap here. And it's got a great scent. All right. And here we go. Now this razor, because this handle is hollow, the weight really moves up even past this this part of the mount up here, and even just like 4 millimeters toward the head from that. But once you lay it on your skin, when you're doing the north-south, then the weight works in your favor. Of course, that's only for one pass. The rest of the passes, we're going to have other directions involved. But it generally works out pretty well. This handle has a nice grip. I need to get another brass handle. There were some on sale during Black Friday, but I didn't get any because I couldn't think of any brass razors that I had that needed a handle. Well, I've got one. My carved is the carved threading is a little different than the Gillette threading. And so I did not want to get one for my carve. Carve is a Canadian brand, so it's a little different. All right. Comfortable shave. I did feel the edge of the blade cutting. I could definitely, with poor technique, give myself some cuts and some irritation with this razor. So it's not the smoothest of razors out there, but with just a conscious effort and good technique, I felt very safe and a nice consistent shave without too much problem at all. Now there wasn't really very much slickness remaining on my face there, and so during the rinse it did not give me a luxurious feel or anything like that. But again, this is kind of a no-nonsense soap, a value soap that's going to give you a lot of uses. It's going to give you slickness and a good scent, but really not a whole lot of other niceties. And I can pretty quickly just switch to the painting motion and get going on the second pass. My hair does grow. My cheek area grows from the top to the bottom. And so this is a cross grain pattern on my cheeks. My neck is all weird. Man, it took me such a long time to strategize about this little square right here. Over here, pretty normal. It all kind of goes the same way. I basically do just cross grain passes right there. But over here, man, I had to really plot and try and fail. Little tenderness being stirred up right now. So let's rinse. Now, if you do have some tenderness like that you've stirred up with perhaps an aggressive razor or maybe a bad angle that you just kind of forgot your technique on, a nice tip is rinse with cool water after that pass. Get that area with some nice cool water. It helps to reduce inflammation and soothe that area. And with all that loading that I did, with all that, look, I'm about to put on the third pass of lather. And sure, I have another pass in there, maybe two if I really squeezed it out, you know, but you would almost think I would just have tons of lather left over, and I don't. So, you know what we'll do? We'll do a face lather with this PDP 63. I've learned a lot about this soap over the last few tries with it. Again, cross grain. A little brush bristle hair there. I think the 17 millimeter version of the Deluxe gives me a better shave. This is the 15 millimeter. I do like this one because it's got the universal head where I can buy a handle from Maggard or really anywhere and it'll fit it. Of course, this is little bit of tenderness that I'm generating here. Could also simply be because of the blade as well. Always feel free to try a bunch of blades out with every razor that you have, because different blades will act differently often in different razors. Your favorite blade in one razor may not be the favorite blade in another razor. All right, now a cooling water rinse right now for relief. So let me tell you something about soap concentration. Sometimes if you have to have the soap be as concentrated as maybe this soap had to be, so much loading with just a little bit of water, sometimes you end up with a higher concentration of the oils and the scent on your face, higher concentration of soap, and so that can dry you out a little bit more. Where if I were to add more water into this lather to make it more elastic, like many of the lathers that you've seen me do before, it might not be as viscous and as slick feeling in my fingers, but it still might do well on my face. and it may make it more comfortable for me as well, because it would dilute those fragrance oils, it would dilute the soap as well, and reduce that drying effect that you get. Instead of a soap concentrate, it would be a little bit less of a concentrate and more of a lather. And so that can be kinder to your face, whether you have sensitivities to oils, fragrance oils, essential oils, things like that, or if you just are prone to dry skin. So a really wet lather can help in those situations. And so if you have a soap like this that requires you to run it kind of dry to get the type of feel you want, you know, maybe that's a sign to move on to try some other soaps and see if they behave better when wetter. And then you may enjoy those and the way they treat your face a little more. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and let me just show you how much lather. We did 3 passes, and you saw all that lather that was around the soap puck and all that, and this is all that's left over. That is it. So that is just the way this soap works. I'm really glad that I kind of have learned that, and now I can just kind of do some normal shaves with it, knowing how hard I have to chase if I want to eventually get to a really finger slick lather. I'll know that, yeah, it's possible, but man, you have to load for a while, at least with a soft bore brush. If you've got something more scrubby, then obviously that may take you less time, or something with tons of tips, like a really dense badger brush. That could, I think I loaded for just, 40 seconds or something like that with a dense badger that had lots of tips on it. And it was a good lather. I ended up with 7 passes or something like that. So I just used 2 teaspoons of water. I resisted, I held back. If you're a frequent watcher of me, you know that I just love to hydrate those lathers. It's really hard sometimes for me not to overhydrate it. I didn't do that this time, and so this test was a success. Let me figure out maybe a balm to put on my face. One of my favorites for night shaves is Tuscany. Just a nice, easygoing scent that is not punchy or bitter or sharp. Kind of smooth. Almost like wild cherry with some spice to it. And the funny thing is, there's no cherry in it. It's a combination of other things like cypress and I think either violet or some other floral, and then some spices and bergamot. And that's orchid, maybe the floral. I can't remember if it's violet or orchid. Bergamot, cypress, that floral, and then some spices. And to me, it just kind of adds up to be kind of a spicy wild cherry type scent. So it's a great one to go to sleep to. All right, well, excellent. I'm sure that's gonna, I did have a little bit of tenderness on my face, especially in my neck area. And so you can kind of see the whiteness of the balm. Maybe I used too much, but it will be gone in just a few minutes and my face will be feeling fine. So we are entering into the 22nd use of all the 9 brushes in my borathon, and or at least 8 of them. I've got an Omega that needs some catching up. But this is one that is soft and enjoyable and doesn't give me brush burn or anything like that, even when. So I was saying that this got cut off there. I'm sorry if I repeat myself, but this brush is soft. You can see the bristles will bend a little bit and stay bent, but the tips will bend, but the main stalk, the main part of the bristles will spring it back pretty nicely. and it's soft even though not a whole lot of the tips have split, and that is something that you want your boar brush to do. Definitely some of them around the edge have, but it's still got a long ways to go, and I'm really looking forward to where this knot takes me. It's not splaying out quite as much as some of my other brushes, and I think that might help it to keep those tips instead of onto the side over here, might keep them kind of focused up, which would mean on my face when I'm working it. And so when the tips split, even softer. And so I'm really looking forward to this guy. And, you know, I did have to grind away some of the rings that were right here that kind of gouged my fingers a little bit, a little uncomfortable. And, but I'd fully anticipate with this cheap plastic handle, yanking this knot out and sticking it in something nice at some point when I figure out that when the brush really breaks in nicely. So I'm looking forward to watching that guy grow. I'm glad he's a part of my rotation. All right, everything's cleaned up. I feel good about it. I'm really happy that I landed that slickness that I was trying to hit. Was just kind of falling short by overwatering my lathers a little bit. And I really expected, with so much of the lather that was around the thing and on my brush, I expected it to really triple and quadruple once I mixed up the lather, but it didn't. Just the way this soap works, and nothing wrong with that per se. Soaps are all different. Pardon me, sorry. All right, well, love the scent, and I think the Tuscany works really nicely with the warm spiciness of the number 63. And it's a nice transition to a slightly different, sweeter scent, but still with some spice. So I'm a fan of that. All right, well, hey, I hope there was something here for you. We will continue working with the Borathon. I've got a few more Samogs to do to put 22 uses on them. I've got the Stirling boar to, man, that guy is slow to break in. Got him to put 22 uses on. I'm probably also going to throw in some badgers in the meantime. And I've got that Omega that's really soft, and I'll bring that guy in too. But he's the one who needs to do some catching up. All right. Well, there we go. That's a good one for today. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I sure hope there's been something here that has helped you out. You take care. Bye.